week on Africa Weekly, we look at the challenges facing Angola's first new president in 38 years. We visit a small school in Malawi looking to make a big change in the lives of young women. And we travel to Ghana, where sacred Mona monkeys have become an ecotourism attraction. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Clashes this month between two of Ethiopia's largest ethnic groups, the Oromo and Somali peoples in the south and east, have left hundreds dead and thousands displaced.
We don't know exactly how many were dead. It is under investigation.
The fighting started along the border between the regional states belonging to the two ethnic groups. In April, the leaders of the two regions signed an agreement to settle the unrest, but violence erupted again earlier this month after two officials from the Oromia region were arrested by Somali regional forces and killed. Tuesday saw the inauguration of Angola's first new president in 38 years. João Lourenço took power after the ruling MPLA party won last month's election. The party has governed Angola since the country's hard-fought independence from Portugal in 1975, with former President José Eduardo dos Santos taking power in 1979. Opposition parties boycotted the ceremony after claiming that the election was rigged. Kenya's opposition have called for anti-government demonstrations after the ruling party moved to change the electoral law ahead of next month's rerun presidential poll. The proposed changes would include limiting the powers of the chairman of the Election Commission. Opposition leader Raila Odinga called the proposed changes an attack on democracy and the constitution that must be resisted.
The Electoral Commission did not conduct elections in accordance with the constitution and the laws. Now, instead of now complying with the law, they're now changing the law to suit their own objectives.
Wednesday's heated debate in Uganda's parliament over scrapping the presidential age limit descended into a brawl as MPs clambered over benches and threw punches at each other. If passed, the amendment would allow long-standing President Yoweri Museveni to run for a sixth consecutive term in 2021. Thousands of South Africans took to the streets across the country on Wednesday, calling for President Jacob Zuma to resign over alleged top-level corruption, accusations which he has consistently shrugged off despite numerous charges. Protesters included members of his own party as criticism of his leadership grows within the ANC. Zuma will have to step down as South Africa's president in 2019 and will likely be succeeded by the ANC leader to be voted in at the party elective conference this December.
Angola's new president, João Lourenço, has big shoes to fill. He succeeds President José Eduardo dos Santos, who ruled the oil-rich nation for 38 years. But rather than change, the former general represents continuation.
We are going to continue the work begun by Agostinho Neto in the past. Work which President dos Santos himself continued. We continue with this work, and with your power, we will build a better future.
As a young man, Lourenço fought against Portugal's rule of Angola and studied in the Soviet Union. He became political chief of the armed wing of Angola's ruling MPLA and rose quickly through the party's hierarchy. But Lourenço's power is limited because dos Santos and his family will keep a firm grip on the party and economy.
The president basically privatized the state in favor of his family, a few cronies. For these individuals, it's all about having the country's resources at their disposal to have the same lifestyle as the richest people in the world have, with no care for what happens to the people.
The new president has vowed to boost foreign investment and bring an economic miracle to the millions of Angolans who live below the poverty line. But he faces huge challenges.
Angola is a country in a huge hole. The crisis is deep. The growth is exploding. The public deficits are out of control. The public debt, people feel it all in their daily lives.
But with Dos Santos' daughter at the head of Angola's state oil company and the aging former president pulling strings behind the scenes, there's little prospect of change in one of the most unequal countries in the world.
Linda Nawa is set to graduate from high school next year, something she doesn't take for granted, growing up in a village in Malawi and being short-sighted. The 19-year-old lives with her mother, a subsistence farmer who barely makes ends meet. Cultural gender roles and poverty in the country result in many young Malawi women never completing school and never going into higher education. But Memory Mdetseni decided to throw them a lifeline. Orphaned at a young age, Memory's relatives couldn't afford to pay for her to finish school. Determined to further her education, she found a sponsor and got a degree in education, eventually opening the Atsikana Pa Ulundelo Secondary School for Girls, which sponsors students in their studies.
We are breaking the cycle of poverty. We've graduated over 800 girls, and most of them, as of today, they are supporting their families, they are supporting their villages, they are supporting the society of Malawi.
Manis Samuel was part of the school's first intake of 80 pupils. After graduating, she went on to study in Canada and the United States, obtaining, among other things, a degree in economics.
Growing up in the rural area in Doha, I thought life was more about you're born, and then after that you help with household chores in the house. You go to primary school, but then you're not successful. So what you do is you drop out of school. After that, you get married, and that's your life. That was what I was surrounded by. I did not know anything beyond that.
NGOs estimate that around 60% of the country's women haven't finished their secondary schooling by the age of 25, resulting in some of the worst education statistics in sub-Saharan Africa.
Until the 1980s, the red, brown and white Mona monkeys living in Ghana's Volta region were considered sacred by local people. Villagers grew up listening to tales of their spiritual links to the primates before the spread of Christianity eroded their traditional beliefs. Yet even today, sharing food with the monkeys is a normal part of life.
We take good care of the monkeys, so they visit us in our homes and we feed them. We feed them with banana, plantain or maize. Even though we're different creatures, we treat the monkeys like the children in our families. They have no fear of us.
The monkeys were hunted and trees chopped down until the village became an eco-tourist attraction in 1996. Now thousands of people visit the sanctuary each year. Some stay in the village to learn about rural life. The money earned has helped to build a health clinic, sink boreholes and renovate school buildings.
With the introduction of tourism, many of the children have gained sponsorship support to go through education. And yes, the monies that come into the community, are spent here.
The sanctuary is one of a handful of successful eco-tourism projects across Ghana. As the country aims to double the number of tourists visiting in the next 10 years, it's hoped this project will encourage other eco-tourism ventures that protect the region's culture and environment while providing resources to local communities.
Hundreds of people took part in the Meskel celebration in Addis Ababa on Tuesday. The annual Orthodox festival commemorates the legend of finding the true cross, or Meskel, on which Jesus Christ was crucified. Next week we'll take you to Angola, the birthplace of Kizomba, the dance craze taking the world by storm. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.